There's no doubt that strength and explosiveness is important for Hyrox. This is especially true if you want to be competitive. The sleds may be where this is most apparent, but they aren't the only station where being strong gives you an advantage. In the third episode of the Hybrid Experiment, we speak with world-class strength and conditioning coach Ryan Gibney. In addition to working with some of the strongest and most explosive athletes in the world, such as professional rugby players and UFC fighters, Ryan has helped elite Hyrox athlete Michael Sandbach become one of the world's most dominant athletes on both the sled pushes and the sled pulls. At the same time, Michael has taken first place in championship races on movements such as the burpee broad jumps through development of speed and explosiveness, also using methods from the system of training Ryan uses. As you will hear, Ryan utilises not only barbells to build Michael's athleticism, but bands, chains, jumps and other dynamic movements that aren't common in training for our sport. With Ryan and Michael having such success, Ryan being such a knowledgeable and respected coach in multiple sports, and an impressively strong guy himself, we were keen to speak with him about how Hyrox athletes can improve their strength and explosiveness. Okay, so I'm here today with Ryan Gibney. He is a strength and conditioning coach and coach actually to a very, very popular Hyrox athlete, Michael Sandbach, who many of our listeners will know as one of the elite athletes. And we got you here today to interrogate you a little bit about how we can all get stronger and fitter. So we'll dive straight in because your gym's actually called named after the conjugate method. So if you could tell us a bit about what the conjugate method is, that would be great.
Well, our gym's actually called the Athlete Factory. Sorry.
Okay.
It's
your Instagram.
It's my brand, as you wear, my brand within the brand, that is Conjugate Sports.
Yep.
Because that's where my kind of background and biases lie. It's in the conjugate style of training, which for those who don't know, conjugate is basically, it just means to join together. That's the simplest term. So what that means in kind of reality is, instead of training one strength quality at one time, we're training multiple strength qualities all at the same time. So if you don't kind of grasp what I mean, in traditional periodization, you might do a strength phase followed by a power phase. You may do kind of a hypertrophy muscle building phase. Conjugate takes all these qualities and blends them all together, as it were, but not just randomly. It is blended together to base around your weak links. And that's basically the easiest way I can describe it, really.
Awesome. So I guess if someone was to say to you, okay, what's the difference between the conjugate method and a 5x5 system or a hypertrophy system? What would you say is the difference there? Like, why would you choose conjugate over those two systems?
The main difference really is that the 5x5 and your normal linear block periodization focuses on one particular strength quality at one particular time, which is great if you've only got one event throughout the year. But most sports and most athletes have got multiple events. They need multiple different strength qualities working at once. So the main difference being is that we're training all strength qualities and we're training them in a concurrent manner. What I mean by that is we're training them along with things like endurance and aerobic fitness. We're also training strength, we're training power, we're training muscular endurance, all at the same time, all at varying levels. And what we do, we're not just focusing on the maximal strength side of things. This is where conjugate's being really misunderstood. Conjugate is being made popular by Westside Barbell, which is the strongest gym in the world. If people don't know, it's a powerlifting gym. So people think conjugate is purely just for powerlifting and strength sports. Conjugate's origins have come from track and field, from the Soviet Union. It's just that it's a self-regulating system. What I mean by that is it's kind of got built-in recovery because we work in waves. We rotate exercises very frequently, so maximal lifts. So we're always training the same movement pattern per se. So say it's a squat pattern, but we may rotate the type of squat week by week if you're really advanced, every 3 weeks if you're not so advanced. But then on the kind of speed days, as it were, so the kind of power portion of the week, of the lifts, we work in a 3-week wave where we wave the percentages up. So on that 4th week, you start at a low percentage again. So automatically, we're building in a nice deload week into week. Because of the rotation exercises, you don't get bored. So for a lot of type A personalities, a lot of athletes get bored very quick and like a lot of variety.
Yeah, yeah, it's true.
I don't like to
It's
speak to
true.
my absolutes, but the people who like a lot of variety and a lot of change and like to hop programs, you don't need hop programs in conjugate because it's got a lot of built-in variety.
Sorry, I know that for example, Michael and Megan Jacoby both follow conjugate method.
Yeah,
So one of the things that people will see a lot of is like resistance bands attached to barbells, and they'll see chains, especially with Michael. So yeah, but so you've could you tell us a bit about why those? So you won't just see someone doing necessarily a back squat, or you will at sometimes, but other times you'll see people attaching bands and chains and things to them.
so the bands and chains of what's called accommodating resistance. So what accommodating resistance is basically, it's just an extra external load, which has a
Mm-hmm,
deload effect at the bottom, and it gets heavier as you come to the top. So concentrically, so at the top of your movement where you're stronger and your joints are less vulnerable, you're locking out a lot more load. And at the bottom where your joints are more vulnerable, it's a lighter load. That's the example with
mm-hmm,
the chain. With the band actually gives you something called an overspeed eccentric. So without getting all too textbook, it speeds up
mm-hmm,
how fast you're getting pulled down. So when your muscles are getting contracted at that super fast rate, they've got to
mm-hmm.
react and come back out the hole quicker. So it's teaching your body how to accelerate with a load on your back.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. So yeah, that's really interesting. So one of the things that people really worry about with strength training, because obviously Hyrox is such a running dominated sport,
Yeah,
they worry that by doing too much strength training, they're going to get too bulky. They're going to get like there'll be like diminishing returns from
yeah.
strength training. So could you tell us a little bit about what your thoughts are around that? Whether you think strength training can hinder running and kind of Hyrox performance at all?
Yeah, it's one of these kind of loaded questions where the answer isn't what everyone wants to hear. It depends. It really does
Mm-hmm.
depend. Uh,
Yep.
Strength is really relative, but strength also underpins everything. So, to make this
Mm-hmm.
in the simplest term, if you increase your horsepower, which strength is, not size, don't get the two mixed up. The size game is more about nutrition. So if you want to put a lot of size on by lifting weights, you've got to feed that. And as an endurance athlete or a Hyrox athlete or any kind of OCR athlete, you're burning far too much energy to gain muscle mass. that food and fuel is getting used for other things more important. Your body doesn't care if you want sexy biceps; it wants to recover. So unfortunately, if you want to put a lot of lean tissue on, you're gonna have to feed it. So, but back to the original question: building strength, getting yourself stronger, basically increases your horsepower. Yeah. So then to do the same task now is no longer 80% of your maximal. It's now 50, 60%. So that then makes that movement a lot more efficient, which then takes a lot less
Yep.
energy, which then your time should increase, and so on and so
Mm-hmm.
forth. Plus the added strength benefits around your soft tissue, not just muscle, tendons, and ligaments by getting them loaded, as well as your bones, especially important for female athletes, getting strong density around the bones and the skeleton structure. It can only improve your sport. Where people get bogged down is they think strength training is kind of bodybuilding and they're going to put on tons of muscle mass and they're going to be stiff, they're going to be full of DOMs, they're going to be sore. It's simply not
Mm-hmm.
the case. Like in our gym here, we train with a lot of top UFC fighters as well as other MMA fighters. We can't put a pound on them guys because they've got to lose it all to make weight. But we need to get them
Yeah.
freakishly strong and explosive. And we
Yeah.
use a
Yeah.
similar approach with Michael because Sandy can allow to put a bit of weight on, but not that much
Mm-hmm.
because he's going to run it all back off himself. So,
Yeah.
tough enough job as it is
Yeah.
to feed him as it is. So it's a kind of double-edged sword, that one. If you're a lower level athlete
Mm-hmm.
getting into high rocks, stick to the lower rep range, get really strong. If you're a
Yep.
higher level athlete, you probably already know that the strength training works. You don't really need to worry about it. You just need to stay away from the mid-range high reps, the bodybuilding zone.
So one of the things that you do with the conjugate method is you place a lot of emphasis on speed, and actually I've seen you doing some like really impressive movements. So like really like just explosive movements, like
Okay.
pushing Smith machines across and things like that. And yeah, so I was going to ask you a bit about whether this is something that you think a lot of Hyrox competitors could and should be using, because I do think that the speed aspect of like moving barbells and bands and things fast is something that gets left out of a lot of strength training.
Yeah, massively. People think plyometrics are the only answer.
Mm-hmm.
Plyometrics are very important in our part of the puzzle. That's what in the conjugate system is known as dynamic effort. So for every maximal effort, so really heavy stuff we do, there's also an opposite 72 hours later for recovery of what's called dynamic effort. So what dynamic effort is, it's an explosive version. So it's what's called speed strength. So it's about 60 to 80% of your maximal 1 RM per se, and it's moved really explosively. We actually measured it here, but you don't need to be that specific. We use an accelerometer. So all strength has a speed. Speed, our strength is actually measured in speed, in velocity, not weight. So we let the speed dictate the load, not the other way around. I hope you can still follow. So
Yep, I got it.
we're looking for it to move roughly 0.8 meters per second. We've got a little toy
Hmm.
that measures this, but you don't need that. You can tell it. If it's fast, it's fast. If it's slow, it's too heavy, basically. And
Yep,
this is where we really use the bands and stuff to really accentuate that overspeed so you can really forcefully throw it back. What this
yep,
does, it teaches you how to increase your rate of force development. So what that basically means is it's teaching you how to use the strength you've got and display it with speed. And I think this is really
okay,
important for all athletes because if you're working hard to make yourself strong, what's the use if you can't display it? It's like doing a ton
yeah,
of endurance running, but you can't finish because you just can't get that bit of pace out of you because you're stuck at a certain pace. It's exactly the same. Super important for your sleds, super important for things like your wall balls, your lunges, your burpee broad jumps, but also really important just for that initial leg drive and learning how to control your body in space. For even for your
hmm,
runs, your ergs, it really is a kind of missing piece of the puzzle. Yes, we do
yep.
go more on the explosive side with jumps and throws, but again, they're all just pieces of the puzzle that fit in together. Hope I haven't got
So,
a time.
so
I completely lost everyone.
no, totally. I really appreciate that. That's so yeah, there's one thing I've always found really interesting with West Side barbell style stuff. I actually got introduced to it through Joe DeFranco's
Yeah,
work. And so when I was just leaving college, I was looking to be strong but also athletic.
yeah,
Like I was doing MMA, and I came across it was called West Side for Skinny Bastards.
yeah. I know.
So, because yeah, because I was really skinny, so and I thought, oh, that'd be really good for me. So I've had some experience mixing the strength and the speed stuff, and actually, so I did that for a while, and it was really useful. But I came back to it because you were talking about MMA fighters, but
Mm.
there was an MMA fighter called Matt Brown who was
Yeah.
doing loads of sled work and like weighted carries and things like that. So yeah, I've looked at all this stuff, so I find it interesting talking to a coach who knows about it
Yeah.
rather than my guesswork. So that's
And
good.
what was your
Um,
own experiences? Did you find?
so I still do quite a lot of banded work if I can, like especially with stuff like strict press.
Yeah.
So I still try and move with speed, and I've always kept the mindset. So I've always kept the try and move as fast as possible when I'm doing stuff like squats. So even if I'm not moving fast, like that's one thing that I definitely learned from the West Side stuff is you should, even if you're doing like something that's not maximal effort, you're always trying to move with that maximal effort.
It's all about intention. It doesn't matter.
Yeah,
So you've got to put that intention into it. And I think the perfect example of
exactly
that
right.
is your sled push in Hyrox. If you hit that slow,
Hmm.
keep going slow, and it's going to be like pushing a car uphill. If you hit that with intention, you'll get
Hmm.
it moving. You'll just keep it moving. You'll flow.
Yeah, yeah. So we actually had a question come in from Instagram. I think it'd be a good time to ask you it now. So when it comes to something like the wall balls,
Yeah.
should people be thinking about, okay, if I want to get better at wall balls, should I be doing a strict press, or should I be doing more like a dynamic press, like a push jerk, or a push press, or something with bands? Like which one of those would benefit you most for something like a wall ball?
I think it's going to sound terrible again. It really does depend. So
Hmm.
you need to know what your individual weakness is on that wall ball. What part of your wall ball breaks down? Is it upper body? Is it lower body? Is it just general fatigue? Is it technique? And reverse engineer it from there. Because every example you give is a great example. You could do push press, you could do like a thruster, so you don't have to release the ball. You could do that banded, you could band you, never mind band the bar. You could actually add resistance to your body, so that won't break your movement pattern within the rack. You can go high reps, you can go for time. Personally, I would mix up a few modalities. I would get stronger in the movement if it's a general fatigue thing. So then that ball feels lighter. And then I'd also do it dynamically so it becomes quicker. And then I would also do time sets, not all at once, obviously, but periodize in so you're actually going through the full spectrum of things. The key to most things in strength training is just leave nothing unturned. Leave no
Yeah.
stone
Yeah.
unturned. And that's why I love conjugate method, because it leaves no stone unturned. It doesn't allow for blank spots because it molds around strengthening your weaknesses, not a weakness in black and white, your own individual weaknesses. That makes up 80% of the workout. Only 20% is the lift. 80% is what's called known as special exercises. So to answer the question, that would be a special exercise. If that was the focus, then that would be the focus on the day, would be to improve the wall ball. It might be something as simple as doing time squats. It might be something simple as doing, kettlebell marches on the spot, holding kettlebells in a high rack or a med ball on a high rack and just marching on the spot to get that general fatigue in your legs, then banging out some wall balls. Hope that helps.
That really helps. It's crazy. It's just like how much stuff you could do to improve a wall ball, such a simple movement. But then, as you've just said, there's so many different things that people can be thinking about to improve.
Yeah, because sometimes I think hitting the same movement pattern over and over again will actually turn your decent wall ball into a shitty wall ball very fast.
Yeah, yeah, I can see that for sure. And so it's true as well, because everybody knows what you feel like after like 30 to 40 to 50 wall balls. They don't look like the first or second one. Um, so in terms of the splits that you run, I know that the popular split is a bit like you said. So you do a heavy upper, then a dynamic upper, and a heavy lower, dynamic lower. Is that the kind of split you'd have a Hyrox athlete on, or is that too much volume
It's a
for
bit too much
a
volume for
Hyrox
a high
athlete?
rocks athlete.
Yeah.
Again, it really varies on the individual where you are. So what your training age
Hmm.
is, what your experience of strength training is. Because I appreciate a lot of high rocks athletes have come from different backgrounds. There's people
Hmm.
from pure endurance sports. There's people from CrossFit. There's people who are just setting fresh into high rocks. There's people coming from bodybuilding. So
Yeah. Yeah.
some people have got zero training age with load. They would be best suited along with the endurance kind of crew with two a
Hmm.
week. How I do that, I call it a condensed conjugate model. We use this a lot with the fighters. So you would do a max effort upper a max effort lower and a dynamic upper on the same day, followed by a max effort upper and a dynamic lower on the same day, 72 hours apart, so like a Tuesday,
Okay.
Thursday. And within the gaps is where you do kind of your high rock specific stuff and your endurance stuff. So you'd get
Hmm.
kind of your egg work done in the week, you'd get your runs done in the week, just to make it fit around your life. When you're going towards kind of your Sandys who are more elite, who've got more of a training age, we vary between times a year between 3 and 4 sessions a week. So when he first come and strength was a goal, hit was a 4 split. It was a lower max effort, an upper max effort, and then we'd go with a same lower upper dynamic split towards the end of the week.
Hmm.
With he'd obviously do multiple sessions in a day, so he'd do his runs and his egg work on top of those days, and we'd build all this in what's called a high-low model. So we'd have high days and low days. So high demand on your nervous system days, low, and recovery days built in between. So he always recovers. Strength's not really an issue so much anymore.
Yep. Yep.
He's got the strength of 10 men, so
Yeah. Yeah. He's definitely one of the strongest athletes we have for sure.
we can
Yeah.
allow a bit more recovery in the system now. So go to a 3 a day, 3 week day, which again for somebody like yourself would probably be well suited to a 3. So you go max effort low, max effort upper, full body dynamic, and they
Okay.
can be any
Yep.
days as you want as long as the max effort and the dynamic effort are 72 hours apart. So then we
Hmm.
just have to plan around where we fit in our CV endurance work, and we do our egg works, and people like Sims, other people like, you know, some kind of Metcon day, whatever
Yep.
suits your program and goes with your style. There's plenty of flexibility in the week for that then. So
Hmm.
in short, range from 2, 3 to 4.
And do you take much interest is probably the wrong word, but do you ask Sandy like what else are you doing? and to make sure that your stuff doesn't mess his like ergs and running up, or his ergs and things don't mess your stuff
Yeah,
up.
100%. So from the day I met
Mhm.
Sandy when we first met, he always had a running coach. So I built my program around his running coach's program. So,
Okay, cool.
so basically, the two kind of styles don't clash then. So
Hmm.
this is what's called a concurrent model. And I'm sorry to go all down this rabbit hole again, but
Nah, that's cool.
styles of training don't particularly get on. So
Hmm.
you've got to separate them in the day. You're
Yep.
not going to put your max effort strength high neural work with a load of endurance work after it, because the two are sending two complete mixed messages to your body. So you can do them on the same day. You've just got to separate them. So it was finding where there's higher days were, there's lower days, what his preferred schedule was, because obviously he's got a family and a job, where we
Yep.
could fit the work in, and then making it fit the program. And then it's just a case of feedback.
Hmm.
It's constant feedback,
Yep.
seeing how you recover, see where it fits, and then we just move things about to suit. And that's exactly even with your lower
Yep.
level athletes. It doesn't matter whether you're an elite or it's your first ever fun run. It's got to suit your
Mhm.
lifestyle or you'll crash and burn.
Yeah, yeah. It's that was interesting that what you said there. That so if somebody was, because obviously your body adapts to the stimulus that you apply to it, right? Which is what you're saying. So if somebody was to go and do a max effort lift,
Yeah,
and then within like an hour or so they were off doing like a long run,
yeah,
your body would. You're saying your body would just be like, "What do you want me to do? Do you
yeah,
want me to get stronger, or do you want me to
yeah.
get more endurance?" Like
Yeah.
there's two shorter gaps. So what kind of gaps would you recommend people leave between those type
It's called the
exercises?
interference effect. It's well researched. So basically, you're talking minimum, 3 to 6 hour gap. So in a
Okay.
perfect world, you get up in the morning, you go for your run, you lift in the afternoon, or you lift
Hmm.
in the evening,
That's cool.
or vice versa.
Yeah.
I prefer it in the morning run because the strength weight is going to take more out of your nervous system and need more recovery. Whereas the
Hmm.
kind of long, steady run will aid your recovery in the correct heart zone. So
Hmm.
we'd rather get
Yep.
that nice and done and then get the maximum bang for buck out of that strength session. Then you've got the rest of the day to recover, rather than put yourself into more of a recovery debt and stealing from your body. That way, all the
Hmm.
hormone signals and everything else you've sent for your body can actually register and deal with.
That's awesome. So that's a good rule for people to take away. Definitely one I'll take away: 3 to 6 hours. So that's great. What another question that we had come in that I think fits in quite well here is whether there's a difference between how you train male and female athletes at all.
It's the hormonal thing, really. It's with female athletes, you've got to be considerate of menstrual cycles. You can't just redline them because you wrote it's a max effort day if they're during their menstrual cycle, because they're just body's just not prepared to recover. So
Yep.
again, there's not much difference in the actual content per se or the loading.
Hmm.
It's just having that client and coach feedback with each other and really being on top of their recovery and seeing where they're at. Like I
Hmm.
say, if it's a menstrual cycle thing or they've got young children and young families and they're extra tired, you can't redline them. You've just got to back off. You've got to push when you can push, and you know be smart when you can be smart. And that's the only
Yep.
real main difference, really. Things like Q angles on
Hmm.
hips is just exercise selection. So certain exercise selections may be more suited to a female than a male. Lifting getting strong, lifting big weights is not gonna, turn them into a man, like you said, the likes of Meg and people like that.
Yep.
They've got great physiques. They're not big and
Hmm.
bulky. They're getting some impressive times. So it's yeah, and that's the only real difference, really.
So yeah, that's really good to hear. And also wanted to ask you, just before we move on to how to apply this stuff,
Yeah.
I just wanted to ask you: can you be too strong or can you be too fast for a sport like Hyrox? Like, is there a balance you need to do where it starts taking away from one or the other, or is it just get as strong as you like, get as fast as you like?
No, I think there is a balance. I think, like anything, that there is a balance, because with higher strength levels comes higher risk. With higher speed levels comes higher risk. Strength's
Hmm.
relative. The beauty of high rocks to other sports is, those loads are fixed.
Yeah.
So your sled is always going to be what the sled is, obviously, unless they change the rules. The wall the wall balls are going to be what
Yeah.
the wall balls are. So for me, it's getting about getting super strong where you are within the integrity of your own body. Get as strong as you can
Hmm.
recover from. If you start feeling like you're going backwards and you're not recovering, then you need to start focusing on recovery, not strength. As long as you can move that sled, as long as you can start moving it more efficiently, as long as you can pull that sled, as long as you're getting all your work done you need to do and you're strong enough. You're not a power lifter, you're not a bodybuilder, you don't have to break big records. You just find ways of making that weight harder. Like you've seen on some of the videos of Sandy where we use a lot of chains and stuff. We're just making that weight harder. We could easily just use straight weight, which is just going to be more taxing on his body. The reason we use a lot of chains is because it's easier on his joints. I'm very mindful that he's doing a lot of volume on his feet. So the last thing I want to do when he's up way above 2 body weights, bar weight alone, is add more weight when I can add additional accommodate resistance, which is softer on his joints, which again is going to give him more longevity. Just little things like that. That's when you start really implementing things like extra load with chains and things.
Yeah, so that's again really interesting. One thing I was going to ask you, and you might say again, this might be one of those depends questions, but what if someone comes to you and they say, what level of strength do you think I should be at? And they actually like ask for benchmarks, like what should my deadlift be? What should my clean be? Like squats, vertical jump. Like, do you have anything where you go, okay, like this person is actually an athlete, or no, this person just isn't strong enough to be doing a sport?
I do, and they're quite harsh, to be fair. But again,
Yeah, that's
it,
awesome.
it depends on what level you're at. If you're new to the gym, then their goals, they're not, I'm not going to weigh it over your neck, but really, the likes of a box squat, you want to be hitting 2 body weights for 3. If you're new to the gym, just get yourself to your body weight for 5 is a good starting place.
Yep.
But ideally, we want to be 2 body weights. Same with a deadlift, especially if it's a hex bar. A straight conventional one, we want to be body weight and a half. Hex bar, we want to be at least 2 to 2.5, depending again what level you're at. Things like push chin ups, I think everyone who considering really competing in the likes of a sport like Hyrox should be able to do at least 10 bodyweight pull-ups, strict ones. They're not kipping ones, not they just offend the life out of me, them things. I don't know what they are. Bench presses and floor presses, you should be hitting your own body weight for at least 3. Again, upper body pushing, not really that important in any sport. Once you get beyond body weight and body weight and a half, you just risk blowing your shoulders off just to say you've got a big bench. This bench pressing your sport, but it is good to have strong triceps, strong shoulders, strong upper back, because it will help you push and pull and keep balance. What we do here quite a bit is we do a force velocity test. Sounds really fancy. Basically what it is, it's a counter movement jump. We use a jump mat. You can just do it on the floor with some chalk on your fingers and slap the wall, see how high you get. And then you pause and do a standing jump. So you put your hands on your hips, you go into a quarter squat, you wait 3-5 seconds, you jump, and we measure that one. And then we compare the two. So if your static jump, so the hands on hip one, is 80 to 85% of your counter movement jump, so the one where you load and go, you're a balanced athlete. If you start going the other way, so your kind of counter movement jumps through the roof, but your static jumps a bit crap, we know you're more velocity dominant. So we know you're more powerful than strong, and then vice versa. And then that is kind of which biases how we train your strength program. If you need more speed and explosiveness, it will bias that. If you're on the slower side, we'll go that way. If you're super fast and explosive but really weak, then we'll get you stronger, because we want to bring both qualities all over. So we don't want to just make one better than the other. Again, this is why conjugate is my preferred system for this, because it trains them all at the both times. So we're simultaneously pushing all qualities up. And basically that. If we haven't got any of them things, we just do a standard counter movement jump where we're looking at 50 to 60 centimeters for males being good, and it's a 5 centimeter below for females. So we're talking again 45 to 50, 55 as being good. The next 10 centimeter up bracket is going into elite. You're talking, your basketball, your NFL guys, it's 70 centimeter jump plus. They're just like, they train, that's basically an event.
Yeah.
And that's really what we're trying to test. So we're trying to train something for, basically, we're trying to train and test for something in every of the movement patterns. We're looking for a squat, a hinge, a push, a pull, and a jump. So that way we know if you're a balanced athlete or if something alarmingly jumps out, then that's what we'll address first. rather than basically getting strength built on top of a dysfunction, and then down the line you falling apart because we neglected something.
That's really interesting. Loads of stuff for people to test or at least reflect on there. So, in terms of sleds, so we'll just use sleds as an example. What would be actually saying that, I say we just use it as an example, but Sandy's known as being like the best guy on the sled, so you're probably the right person to ask. If somebody really wants to get good at sleds, what would be your recommendation for exercises they should use?
Well, funny enough, that is the whole reason Sandy came to me in the first place, was to get better at sleds.
Nice. Worked.
It worked, and then we went down a rabbit hole with everything else. But
Yeah.
basically, to get good at sleds, you need to get strong. I didn't let him anywhere near the sled until we were right back to a reasonable, what I found as an acceptable point of strength. And that's not just in lower body, that was his whole body, his core strength, his control. And then we worked on technique of the sled. Then we worked on overloading the sled. And basically, that's the only way to do it. You can't just do the same movement and expect to get better at it. You've got to look at the mechanisms of how that sled moves. Why are you weak at the sled? Why are you not as good as you should be? Is it your hand position? Is it your foot position? Is it the angle of your spine? You've got to look where that force is going. And I've seen it a lot, not just in Hyrox, in like rugby, where my background is. A lot of people hit the sled too high, so all that force is going up. You want the force to go horizontally. But a lot of their energy and effort is going through the sled and up. So they're really making the job a lot harder than it needs to be. So the key is to get strong enough. So train above whatever on that sled, on a bar on your back, or pull it from the floor. But get used to leg drive.
Yep.
Then get technically good on the sled, and then start loading the sled back up to where it needs to be. And then start adding the endurance, so the volume on top of that. That is basically the recipe to getting good on sleds.
Yeah. That's really good. And do you subscribe? Do you get people to do things? So you said you got Sandy Strong first. So were you getting him to do things like squats, like squat variations, front squats, back squats, like Zerk squats, that kind of thing? So and those all build those up first, and then, as you say, like overload the sleds and things like that.
Yeah, exactly that.
Yeah.
So you've got to have the initial base strength in your legs and in your trunk to be able to maintain that amount of load for that amount of time. So if you want to get really sport specific, look how long a push takes, then look how long a set of squats take. So you want to be under that same amount of stress for that same amount of time, but with your legs moving. Albeit a sled is unilateral, so one leg at a time, and a squat is bi, so 2 feet at a time. Doesn't really matter. You're going to lift more weight on 2 feet. The sled's nice and stable. There's no load for your spine directly. So you've just got to get that base strength up.
That's really interesting. I'd say I love all this stuff, so it's great for me. It's great for me just getting to ask somebody questions.
I can go on forever.
So yeah, it's cool. So yeah, drawing on your experience training athletes, do you have any advice to Hyrox competitors on something that they could start adding into their training right away that make a difference? Like, is there just something that you're like, you guys just aren't doing this, or you could be doing it and getting easy results?
Yeah, I know we've said it a few times now, but get strong. Genuinely, strength underpins everything. It underpins speed. It underpins endurance. It underpins your recovery. Just don't be scared of having some load. Get yourself strong. On top of that, focus on your recovery. Move away from the Hyrox events for a bit. Don't do the same stuff all the time. Look what makes up that event and train the same movement pattern, not necessarily the movement itself. That's what's called general training. A lot of mistakes I see where a lot of Hyrox people is, they just focus purely on specific Hyrox events. So then they end up getting up terrible habits, and they end up originally with good technique, and they end up with really poor technique because they've just basically done it to death. So take a bird's eye view of what you want to get better at, and break it down and get strong in them movements.
Kind of similar question in a way, but is there any general mistakes that you see people making actually in their strength training? So not so much that they're just not doing strength, but is there a thing that you do see people doing strength training for Hyrox, but you're like, you should be doing this instead, or adding this, or taking this away?
Both sides of the coin, really, but I've seen too much ego lifting, so terrible technique, terrible range, too much weight. And then I've seen really not enough weight. So people
Yeah,
doing really nice stuff, but just not heavy enough to get any kind of stimulus, to get any kind of change. Uh,
yeah,
and then
yeah,
repetitive movements. Me pet peeve where not just Hyrox athletes, people who do other sports, is just hammering sims, hammering them till the cows come home. I'm wondering why they're not
yeah,
improving. But
yeah,
mainly the thing with me is neglecting other parts of strength, and it's going to sound a bit brutal, but sticking to a linear periodization model, training in blocks, because every time you move for the next block, you lose some of what you gained in the previous block.
yeah, yeah,
Most people I've come across who do high rock stuff do multiple events. So by the time they get to that event, all those like great strength or power gains they made are now gone by the time they actually
yeah.
get to the event. So they never really get to take advantage of the hard work they've done. All they've done really is created a load of fatigue.
Yeah, it's definitely. I can definitely see that. I have similar experiences with CrossFit where we do stuff like so built my back squat up to like 160 kilos, and then went through the CrossFit Open and like went through the season on that, and then like by the time I was back squatting again, I was like down to like 130,
Yeah.
and it's like it's just like you feel devastated. So yeah, because
It's one of the worst. It is. I've come across with a few former CrossFit athletes, and I find the same thing. They've got no aerobic base, and the recovery's shot because everything they do
yeah,
is so
yeah,
high all the time. And then when they've had a nice strength phase, they don't revisit it for a long time. So when they do, they're absolutely
yeah,
devastated
yeah.
because it's gone.
Yeah, it's the thing. Like what tends to happen is you get to the Open and you're like, oh, I'm not strong enough. So you spend like the next 3 to 6 months getting strong, and then exactly like you said, like you're like, right, I'm strong enough now, and then you just totally forget it and just start doing metcons every day again. So, and then the Open comes around and the whole thing starts again. Oh, I'm not strong again. So yeah. Um, so I imagine when Michael Sandback came to you, you'd probably never heard of Hyrox before. Is that right?
No, I just got
No.
an email, and I was thinking,
Hmm.
what the friggin' hell's this? And he broke it down. I was thinking, this is
Yeah, yeah.
insane. Who does this?
so so yeah, that was my question really. So how did the process of breaking it down and working with Michael go? Like for you as a coach, when it came to Michael going, all right, I'm doing this Hyrox thing, what was your steps then to breaking down Hyrox and getting a program written up for him?
So what's very important for me before I even delved there was I wanted to hear from Michael's mouth what Hyrox was to him, how he perceived it. So I let him explain to me what Hyrox is, even though I'd already done my own research. And then I asked him what he felt he needed to get better at to make him a better Hyrox athlete. So
Hmm.
that gave me something to work with then. So then I took my deep dive into Hyrox and seeing what are the demands of Hyrox on paper. So then I look at the demands of the sport, then I'll break it down further, look at the demands and the timings of each kind of event. So each station, each one, what are the average paces? How long does a sled take? What's the loads? How long does a sled pull take? What's the average time on the eggs? What's the average time on the lunges? So on and so on. And then basically we make Sandy do a sim, which I watch, and then we see get some feedback from him, and then I give him some feedback and some video from me where I think there's some easy low hanging fruit things we can fix up purely on technique for him to go and work on. And then
Yep.
we sat on common ground and agreed on some short term, medium, and long term goals. Like, what is your number one priority now? Back then, it was the sled, so it was okay. So during this first phase, we're going to go away, and the focus will be on this, and then the focus will be on that, and that's how we just keep evolving. It's just a constant feedback loop. Then I just watch video now. I've been to a few of Sandy's races now too, so I like to go and see where he's at now
Ah,
because he's
nice.
kind of at that level where video's not good enough because obviously with the
Mm.
event comes the environmental stress, comes the travel, comes some other things that can throw a curveball. So we're constantly looking for ways just to refine everything we can refine. Some things we can't control, but if we can control it and train
Yeah.
it, then we will.
So Sandy's obviously improved massively as an athlete, but I was wondering if, so to give some people motivation, do you get many athletes come to you? Because obviously it's hard looking at Sandy now because he's such a strong guy anyway. Like as you've built him up, for someone to look at him and take much inspiration. But do you have
Yeah,
people coming to your gym
yeah,
fairly weak, maybe weak is probably a bit harsh, but not
yeah.
strong,
Oh God,
and then you've got them strong?
90% of the members in our gym are general population. They're just general
Hmm.
people who a mixed bag of us starting out in sport. We've just a little sidetrack. We've just signed up with Hyrox to become an affiliate gym. So
Oh, nice!
done soon. So
Congrats on that. That's cool.
everyone's welcome to come and visit. Feel free if you're in the area.
Yeah, yeah.
But obviously, again, we're going to put our own slant on that. So as long with the
Hmm.
high rock stuff, I will do a base program for those people to do. But I'm expecting those people to be fresh from the street, no experience,
Hmm.
and we want to build them
Hmm.
up to do the first high rocks any way they
Yep.
want to do it. Be it a relay, be it
Yep.
partners, it doesn't matter. But as I was saying before, my little mini tangent, 80-90% of our members are general pop. They're just people like
Hmm.
everyday people that want to get in shape. And that's kind of what we focus on. We're called the
Yep.
athlete factory, but our clientele is the everyday athlete. We train
Hmm.
everybody like an athlete. So the short answer is kind of, yeah, we've got
Yeah.
few elite athletes who come here, but they just mingle along with everybody else. Our goal is to basically give everyone the same service as an elite athlete, but meet
Hmm.
them where they're at.
Yeah.
Meet them where they're at.
Because I know a lot of people. So I have a lot of friends who feel like who are like this, and they're just like, I'm just not strong. And it's like, well, what have you done to try and get strong? And it's normally like, I did like bench for like a month and nothing happened. But like, I think the thing that I'd like I hope that you would agree with is that pretty much if you're not doing strength training now and you're doing high rocks and you're like doing okay at it, you can probably get better by doing strength training,
Oh,
right?
100%. It's low hanging fruit,
Yeah.
and you're silly if you
Mm.
don't go there. What I would
Yeah.
say is if you're not comfortable, get yourself a coach. Don't be following programs of, people like Hunter, Sandy. They're too far advanced. Their program will kill you. I'm sure the internet is full of
Yeah.
stuff and magazine articles by elite athletes from every sport. All that's going to do is burn you out. And most of it's probably not true. It's probably something they've done in the past anyway. Uh, so
Yeah.
what I would say is just start. Everyone who comes through our door gets a program. We've got a training app. We put everyone on the training app. To get an induction, we see where they're at. And stage one is just GPP, so general physical preparedness. We try and build a base. We get them used to pushing, pulling sleds. We get them technically lifting, basic stuff. We get them foundationally strong in all the movement patterns. Then we layer on top more complexity when they get comfortable with it, and that's basically
Hmm.
what we're about. But yeah, I do believe anyone who's doing high rocks or who's in a high rocks should really consider just start like you did when you got into high
Yeah.
rocks. Just start. If you're
Yeah.
lost, there's so many resources out there. We offer programs, little cheap plug, but but there's programs out
Yep.
there, and I know a lot of really high quality coaches involved in high rocks offer programs, but don't
Hmm.
just
Hmm.
copy and paste some elite athlete's program and jump straight in because you'll end up in hospital or just broken and never again.
Yeah.
We've
It
all
reminds me of like it reminds me of like when you pick up the men's fitness magazine and you see like I just use Chris Hemsworth or someone like that as an example, and they'll be like Chris Hemsworth workout, and they'll put like his hardest, longest workout he's ever done. But when I was like college age, I would literally be like, right, I'm just gonna do that every day for like the next year, and you'd just be like, you'd be doing like 100 sets of like tricep extensions and bicep curls and bench like every day, and just
can't,
last like a week, and you're like, I can't do
can't walk for days.
it. Yeah, yeah. So, so you've obviously been a coach for a long time. As like you say, you do general population, but you also do coach elite athletes
Yeah,
and in all different sports. So one thing I was really interested to know, so it doesn't have to be high rocks, it probably won't be, but
yeah.
what's the most impressive feat of strength or athleticism that you've seen personally?
Two spring to mind immediately. My background, professional rugby. That's where I spent the last 15 years, or 18 years. Um, I was in Georgia, in Tbilisi, former Soviet Union. And basically, one of my players who plays in France now, a guy called Vito Klobaveshi, just casually deadlifted 400 kilos for 3 reps like it was nothing, and then asked me, was that okay?
Wow.
That sticks with me because
Yeah.
he wasn't even warm. He just stepped in it, ripped it off the floor 3 times while staring at me into my soul and went, was that okay? Just like, yeah, it's okay.
Yeah, that's not bad.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to get tackled by him.
Oh, God, no. No, he's an absolute unit. But yeah, that sticks with me. Yeah, and an American guy called Carl Miles, who's the fastest guy in rugby, he was a former Olympic sprinter. The USA rugby team, Sevens, have been here a good few times, and he's just an absolute freak athlete. He's just, I know it's a bit dangerous, but he basically jumped over a parked car. Bear in mind, he's about 5'4" in one single hop.
Wow.
It's
Yeah.
like
That's awesome.
is ridiculous, and it's like it's beautiful to watch him warm up. Is like his technique and his how he moves. He just glides. It's impressive.
I feel like that would be a great party trick. Like if you were going out, get out with your friends and
The car was
yeah.
with him, and he was in a dead stop, and the lads were geeing him on. I thought, what's he up to? And he just cleared a car and just landed on the other side. Like,
I'd love to be able to pull that out of the back pocket.
It was just
Awesome. So I was going to ask it. So one thing I was going to ask you this, although if you think actually this is a stupid question, I can't really answer this. Tell me, and we'll move on. But if I can ask you, so if I go through each of the Hyrox stations and say, if somebody's got this as their weakness, what should they work on? As you said, like some of the time you'll be like, well, it depends what their weakness is, and in that case, they'll have to work that out. But if I go through all them and you can say what you think might be worth working on, does that make sense?
But I'll try.
Yeah. All right. So let's say someone struggles with pulling a decent rate on the skis. So their skis always letting them down. Do you have any thoughts on how they could improve that?
Yeah, upper body pulling strength, grip strength, and technique.
Perfect. Yep. So that's exactly what I'm looking for. Rowing.
Pretty much the same, but again, leg strength as well and leg endurance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but you need that strong back as well to row, because if your core's like jelly, then the force isn't getting distributed nice.
Awesome. So I'm also testing my my ability to remember all the stations now, because I tried to open it on a tab then, but it wouldn't open. so we got sled pushes.
Again, as we discussed earlier, just get strong. Get strong.
Yeah.
Stable for your whole body, and again, work on your lower body muscular endurance and explosive.
Yeah. And the sled one. And the sled pulls. Is there anything different that you would train in terms of, or would you overload again?
I'd overload them, but I'd work heavily on your grip strength and upper back strength with that one. One that carries over into that, which is really unsuspected, is deadlifts or rack pulls. Probably more so rack pulls from a quarter squat position, so kind of just below your knee. Similar position to what you'd be in.
Awesome. And farmers carry next?
Farmers carries themselves, but with multiple implements, not kettlebells.
Okay.
Use handles, use dumbbells. Yeah, do it for time sets. Do it for above the weight you normally do it in. Just things like that. Just get funky with the implements with the farmers, really, because again, it's grip strength, but grip strength can get really old fast and can burn your nervous system out.
Yeah, I find grip strength's a tough one for me, at least, to work on. Like, would you say people just practice holding stuff for a long time with different handles, or I guess what would you say is a good way to train?
Anything involving your grip is really heavy on your central nervous system, which leads to really fast burnout.
Okay.
So if you're pulling as part of your program anyway, you just want to do some like isometric holds and stuff in your pulls, or your pull and work itself. Use thicker implements. I wouldn't really add any additional volume per se. I'd just add more intensity to what you're already doing. And if you feel yourself not recovering, then you need to back off and go back in, because it is a surefire way to quick burnout. That's why I don't use that many pulling variations in programs for the likes of people like Sandy and athletes who don't rely purely on grip, because it can quite easily lead into burnout really fast.
Yeah. One thing I've seen all the arm wrestlers doing at the moment is plate flips.
Yeah,
You've seen those,
yeah,
just people doing them with like a 25-kilo plate, and I'm like, if I did that, I'd break my fingers.
yeah. It's just insane stuff like that. But you don't need to do that.
Yeah, yeah. No, don't worry, I wasn't recommended it. It just came to mind.
Yeah,
So we got burpee. You actually mentioned burpees as something that you thought strength could help, which is interesting. So yeah, if someone's struggling with burpees,
yeah. Thing with burpees is I've seen so many mixed kind of techniques, and some are really ugly. But I understand why
Mhm,
the ugly is per se, because you've got to conserve energy. But
mhm,
things, you know, strength definitely for burpees, but also mobility will help you with your burpees. I think if you've got tight hips and tight glutes, then unfortunately you're at a massive disadvantage. But also
yeah,
things to help
yeah,
with your burpees, I think, for your burpee broad jumps is just generally plyometrics as well. So doing multiple jumps,
mhm,
broad jumps, things like that, so you can cover a bit more ground. Doing things like walking lunges where it overstrides, so really long ones. So you're kind of mimicking
mhm,
the movement, but you're not doing the movement. And then
yep,
hopefully you
yep.
should build more endurance in them areas. So when you go to put them all together, you should just have a little bit more whip in you.
Yeah, it's definitely something that I noticed. Is that so I'm good at burpees. I'm not good at burpee broad jumps. So that I think you've got to be right that there's some improvement to be had by just working on your broad jumps.
Yeah, and it doesn't help that they're in a miserable part of the race.
That's exactly right. Yeah, and they take so much energy out of you, right? Like it's such an explosive movement. I guess if you're not used to doing it, then yeah, it's not really that surprising that you're using a lot more energy than you
That's it.
probably
And
think.
it's creating that efficiency doing that jumps, because them submaximal explosive movements really tax you.
Yeah, for sure. So two more. So we got lunges.
Unilateral work, static. So what I'd say to get better at your
Hmm.
lunges, do them on the spot. Reverse lunges, loaded with a barbell on your back, loaded with a sandbag on your back. Different load variations. You don't always have to be moving.
Hmm.
You just gotta get
Yep.
your body out to overload the volume and a bit more load in that movement pattern.
Awesome. And wall balls, everyone's favorite.
But again, wall balls is just, you can get good at wall balls without fatigue, but by the time you get to them in a Hyrox, there's so many other factors. There's so much fatigue involved. There's 100 different answers.
Yeah.
Um, thing with
Yeah.
wall balls, I'd say, is like we spoke about earlier, things like thrusters, dumbbell thrusters,
Hmm.
barbell thrusters, sandbag thrusters, med ball thrusters, doing your dynamic presses, push presses. You really need to
Hmm.
know and be honest with yourself where your weaknesses lie on it. Is it a strength thing?
Yeah.
Is it a muscular
Yeah.
endurance thing? Is it a pure recovery energy management thing? Because at that point in the race, you've just absolutely blew your tanks and there's nothing left in you.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Like wall balls, it's such a, like you say, it's a dynamic movement. It's there's so many parts of it as well. Like as you say, like you don't know the person I'm making up. It could be their squat that's breaking down. It could be their breathing, their
That's
shoulders. So
It could
so
be.
yeah, but you answered it well all the same. so so I've really enjoyed the conversation. I've got loads out of it, and I'm sure people listening will. So thank you very much for coming on, and massively appreciate it. And before I let you go, if you could just tell everyone just a bit about your gym and what it is you offer. 'Cause you said you do offer programs and things. I think hopefully there'll be people who want to reach out and
Yeah,
get in touch.
everyone's welcome. Our gym's called the Athlete Factory. We're in Chester, in
Hmm.
Cheshire. We're a sports performance gym. You can check us out at AF Chester UK on Instagram, which will probably lead you to Facebook and everywhere else.
Yep.
Again, everybody is welcome. You can come and drop in if you're in the area. You can check us out, like us, follow us. Myself, I'm at Conjugate Sports Performance, or Conjugate SP on Instagram. My page is a little bit quiet at the moment, but I am working on it. There's a lot of things coming, so do follow. Me and Sandy are actually putting together a program, and we will be doing custom online programming for people. And it is actually me and Sandy. It's not a generic template. we so
Yeah, that's awesome.
you can get in touch with us via my email for that, or via Instagram, or through Sandy. Um, and we're going to create like a little waiting list for that, because obviously there's only so many people we can do in person. But on the back of
Yep.
that, we do offer training programs which can be bespoke to you by myself, which would just be purely strength and power work for Hyrox. Again, you can contact us through the email address, which is myfullname.com, which will probably be on a link on this.
Yeah, I'll put it in the description for you. Yeah.
But any questions or any follow ups on this, feel free to hit out on Instagram, get in touch. I'm quite happy to answer anyone's questions for free. And, you know, you don't expect you to pay me to answer the question. You know, I love this, and I'm happy to, you know, reach out and help build the community. But yeah, hopefully
Awesome.
you get in touch and we can program you and get you your best race ever.
Make you super strong.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time. It's really enjoyed this. It was awesome.
Thanks for having me, mate. Really appreciate it.